Welcome to the Healing Pain Podcast with Dr. Joe Tatta. Each week, we interview top experts in physical therapy, pain science, and integrative pain care. You'll learn the most up-to-date information for treating and reversing persistent pain. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be used as personalized medical advice. And now, here's your host, Dr. Joe Tatta.
Hey there, friends. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Healing Pain Podcast. We're discussing how to beat cancer holistically with Chris Wark. Chris is a cancer survivor, a best-selling author, as well as a patient advocate. He was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer at the age of 26. After surgery, Chris made the decision to go against his doctor's advice, opted out of chemotherapy, and chose to use nutrition as well as other natural therapies to heal. Over the last decade, Chris has become one of the most well-known cancer survivors on the planet and reaches millions of people per year as a blogger, a podcaster, a speaker, as well as a global health coach. On today's episode, we'll discuss how to beat cancer, primarily by using nutrition and other lifestyle-based interventions. Okay, without further ado, let's begin and let's meet Chris Wark. Hey there, Chris. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Joe. Good to see you, man. It's been a few years.
It has. It's funny when your assistant reached out to me and I reached out to her about this episode. I'm like, I can't believe I haven't covered this topic yet. And I can't believe I haven't had you on the podcast to talk about this. So I'm excited to talk about everything cancer today. It's a topic that all of us are touched by. All our friends and family are touched by. So it's great to have you here.
Thanks, man. Well, that's perfect timing.
So of course, your website is Chris Beat Cancer. And you have your third book that's just out, which everyone really should check out. It's called Beat Cancer Kitchen, Deliciously Simple Plant-Based Anti-Cancer Recipes. It's actually out today, so you can all find that on Amazon and all major bookstores and all online retailers. Chris, for those who are listening who don't know you, just give us some background on your personal cancer journey.
Yeah, well, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in December 2003, so almost 18 years ago. I was 26 years old at the time. And like most cancer patients, I was pretty clueless about the disease and clueless about health and nutrition and healing. I was a real estate investor and a musician, and I was a newlywed, and I was really excited about my life and my future. And, things just seemed to be going well for me. And then I started having abdominal pain. And the pain would come and go, and it, I noticed it for the better part of a year. And towards the end of that year, it started to progressively get worse. And I eventually went to the doctor. They did a colonoscopy, found a golf ball sized tumor in my colon, which again, if someone had asked me, where's your colon? I honestly, I don't even know where the colon was. Okay. That's how clueless I was about human anatomy. Right. So I thought it was a punctuation mark, but they took a biopsy and sent it to the lab. And, within a day or two, they called and said, look, it's cancer, right? You've got cancer, and we're going to need to get you into surgery right away and get this thing out of you before it spreads and kills you. So again, I was a very clueless cancer patient, and I have since learned that, this is the same routine that everybody goes through. You get a diagnosis, you're rushed into treatment before you understand what's happening to you, right? Before you even have time to think about your life and your health and your future and the way you're living and maybe the things in your life that are contributing to your disease. There's no time, right? There's this sense of urgency that is used, what's a phrase that I did not coin, but the tyranny of the urgent. Mm-hmm. And, you basically become a subject of urgency and tyranny. And when you're rushed into treatment, oftentimes there are treatments that you don't understand, right? Unless you have a medical degree. You don't know the risks. You don't know the side effects. You don't know the benefits. You're assuming, patients make a lot of assumptions, right? That in most cases are not true. But I was, again, told you got to get surgery right away. This was a few days before Christmas, and they wanted to have me in surgery before Christmas, like within a day or two. And I was like, man, can we just postpone until after the holidays? Like, this is depressing enough. Right? So I went in on December 30th. They took out a third of my colon, that's where the tumor was, obviously. They took out a bunch of lymph nodes. When I woke up, they said, it's worse than we thought. You're stage 3C. So we were hoping it was stage 2. If it's stage 2, at least at that time, if you're stage 2, that you have surgery and they send you home and you're done. But stage 3 means chemo. And they told me I needed 9 to 12 months of chemo. So at that moment, I initially accepted, like, this is my fate, right? This is it. This is what I got to do. But a couple things happened in the hospital that got the wheels turning. The first thing that happened was they served the very first meal that they served me after cutting my guts open and removing a section and sewing it back together. Do you know what it is, Joe? Do you know what it was?
God, I can only imagine. I worked in a hospital for 2 years, so
okay,
so much
you got to guess.
There's got to be a version of mashed potatoes, jelly, and some kind of beef.
That's a good guess. Yeah, it was some kind of beef. It was a sloppy Joe.
Oh no.
I think it was beef.
right, exactly.
Sloppy Joe, man. I don't remember what the sides were, honestly, but they put that thing in front of me on this tray, and I remember just being like, yuck. Like, why are they serving this horrible industrialized cafeteria food to sick people? This is ridiculous. And I wasn't a healthy guy, but I knew what health food looked like. I knew if they brought me a plate of vegetables, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, they want me to eat healthy stuff. Right. So that was surprising. Again, the only place, as far as I knew, you could get sloppy joes would be like summer camp or the military or prison.
Right. And then, of course, the message always is you need your strength, you need your energy, make sure you eat everything.
Yeah. So I did eat it. I don't know if I ate the whole thing. I mean, I was on some super heavy drugs, right? But I did eat because I was hungry. I ate it. And then a few days later, they told me, okay, you can go home today. And my surgeon came in to check on me, and we were just having a conversation about, what was next or what to expect. And I said, hey, is there any food I need to avoid? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, they just cut out a third of my large intestine. Like everything you eat is going down the tube, right? Through there. Like, I don't want to eat, is hot sauce a problem? Or so he said, no, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer. That was it. All the nutrition advice.
So there was no, we're going to give you a complimentary session with the hospital dietitian. Hospital dietitian didn't come in and screen you or anything like that.
No.
Yeah. Is that, in your experience, is that common even nowadays, would you say? I know you speak with a lot of people.
It depends on the hospital.
Yeah.
And it depends on the cancer clinic. Some of them have a dietitian on staff. But in my experience, the advice given by these dietitians is worthless. It's just as bad as the sloppy Joe, right? They're like, you just need to make sure you get enough calories, and you're gonna lose your appetite during chemo. So the best thing to do is to drink milkshakes and eat ice cream and eat whatever you want.
Have an Ensure.
Yeah. So this brings me to the problem. One of the problems I spent 5 chapters of my first book, Chris Beat Cancer, highlighting the perils and pitfalls in the cancer industry, medical industry, and pharmaceutical industry. The problems, right, in these industries that are the reasons that so many patients suffer and don't get well. But in the cancer industry specifically, everybody that gets diagnosed with cancer wants to know, why did I get cancer? Like, how did I get cancer? What in the world? And when they ask their doctor this question, the answer they invariably get is, well, we don't know, but it may be genetic, or it may just be bad luck.
That's right. That's 100% right. And it's funny because I heard you say early on in our interview today, you mentioned the word factors or contributing factors. And that's so important for people to start to understand, is that it's not necessarily 100% genetic. There are lots of different contributing factors in your life that contribute to this and can contribute to the complete reversal of it.
Yeah. And there's research that shows up to 90% of cancers are caused by 3 factors: diet, a poor diet, lifestyle, and environment. And I'm happy to break those down because I want to, because the thing is, if you have a problem in life, it's pretty hard to solve that problem if you don't get to the root cause of the problem, right? Like if your ceiling is leaking, if water is dripping from your ceiling, you can put a bucket under it and catch the water and prevent further damage, right? You can mitigate the damage from this dripping water, but it's still dripping, right? And eventually your ceiling is going to become saturated with water and it's going to cave in, right? And you're going to have a huge mess and a really expensive repair, right? So you have to get up on the roof and find the leak and patch the leak. Like you have to get to the root cause of the problem. This is the same in health. You have to get to the root cause. And the problem with so many approaches in medicine, modern medicine, is that they're alleviating symptoms, right? But they're not solving your problem. When you solve your problem, you get well, you heal. So obviously this podcast is about pain, right? Pain is a symptom of a problem. It's not, if you just take pain pills, you're not solving the problem, right? You're just masking it, you're hiding it, you're suppressing it, right? You're living with it. So there's a lot of parallels, obviously, to what I've learned about cancer. So backing up a little, what I said earlier about cancer patients asking these questions, why did I get cancer? And their doctor says it's either bad luck or bad genes. What happens is that is turning that person into a powerless victim of disease, right? There's nothing you did. It's not your diet. It's not your lifestyle, right? No, it's not environmental toxins, whatever those are. It's not stress, right? It's just bad luck or bad genes. So because there's nothing you did to contribute to your problem, there's nothing you can do to help yourself. The only thing you can do is show up for treatment, right? You just trust us and you say your little prayers and you cross your fingers, and that's the best you can do. And so, no, don't change your diet. No, don't get on the internet, right? No, you don't need to read any self-help books, right? By all means, whatever you do, don't try to help yourself, okay? Do not do that. Don't eat healthier. We don't know what's in these fruits and vegetables. We don't, we're concerned. We don't want you to eat too many fruits and vegetables. We don't know what'll happen, right? Chemo's fine, but don't drink too much carrot juice. So anyway, these are the kind of crazy things that patients are told every single day. And again, they leave the clinic in this state of powerlessness, right? And despair and hopelessness and depression and discouragement. Like this is all fostered, and fear, right? Above all. And this is all fostered by the way that the cancer industry is designed. It's not that doctors and nurses are bad people. They're not, but they're trapped and trained in a system that pays them really well despite the results, right? It doesn't matter if you live or die. They're getting paid, right? It doesn't matter, right? And so the incentives are a bit perverse. Moliere said, I think it was 1664, I believe medicine is the best of all trades because whether you do any good or not, you still get your money. Yeah, right. So again, I didn't know any of this stuff, but I was starting to lose faith. I'd never had any health problems. I'd never really been to the doctor, been to hospitals. Like I'd never, I didn't have any experience in the world of, health care, right? We care about your health. But I was starting to figure out that this wasn't health care, it was sick care. And they weren't recommending that I do anything actually healthy, right? And so my logical, rational mind, right? The wheels were turning and I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense. Like, I don't like this system. I don't like the way this is set up. And I'm an only child, so I've always been sort of independently minded and, march to the beat of my own drum or whatever. So I've always been a critical thinker and independent thinker and questioned authority and questioned rules and all that kind of stuff. So I go home and I'm getting off the pain medicine. And as I sobered up, I really start thinking about my life and my future. And the idea of poisoning my way back to health didn't make sense to me, right? It just didn't sit right. And I think this is most cancer patients, right? They're like, I don't want to do that, but they're told they have to, right? They're told there's nothing else you can do. right? There's nothing you did can contribute. There's nothing you can do to change your life to help yourself heal. This is your only hope. But I didn't believe that, right? I believed instinctively that no, there must be things I can do to help myself. I don't know what to do, but there must be. And my wife and I prayed about it. I'm a Christian, and we prayed, and I was like, God, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me. Just like, show me. I'm listening. Like, I need help. And it was just a simple prayer of desperation and faith, right? Just at the same time, like trusting that God would provide for me. 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a man in Alaska who's a friend of my dad's. And this book was written by a guy named George Malcolmus, who had healed his colon cancer with a radical diet and lifestyle change. His body healed. He didn't have surgery. He didn't have chemo. He didn't have radiation. Within a year, his tumor was gone. And I was so excited and encouraged by his story. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is the answer to my prayer. I knew it. And he made the case that no one else was talking about, that the reason so many of us are sick with chronic diseases is because of our diet and our lifestyle and our bad habits, like that we are actually harming ourselves with our daily choices. But the good news is that you can change your daily choices. You can make different choices and you get a different outcome. So I had this epiphany: the way I'm living is killing me, right? The way I'm living is killing me. That's not good. I need to change the way I'm living. And I don't need to just change a little, like I need to take massive action. It's not like, oh, I'm going to start taking these supplements and I'm going to cure my cancer with this herb, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that was not the way I was thinking, right? I was like, I need to change everything about my life. So overnight, I converted to a raw food diet, all fruits and vegetables, all organic, bought a juicer, started juicing. And I just started reading and researching like crazy, just like, I need to learn. What else can I do? And in a very short amount of time, I was just on this transformative life journey, right? Where I was changing everything about my life as fast as I could learn on what was potentially causing harm, right? And what I could replace that with. I would do it, right? So it's like, again, getting up on the roof, finding the roof leak, solving that problem. So it started with the diet. And we know that the Western diet is a diet that promotes cancer, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, eating tons of processed food, junk food, sugar, salt, and oils, tons of meat and dairy. Like, when you look around the world, the countries that eat the lowest amount of animal food and the lowest amount of processed food have lower rates of cancer, lower rates of heart disease, lower rates of diabetes. Like, on every continent, there's a consistency that you find when you look at epidemiological research. And so that's really encouraging, right? There are, for decades and decades and decades, doctors and scientists and researchers have studied chronic disease on all continents and the contributing factors. So we know what's causing it, most of it. So the poor diet is a huge part. And the other thing, like I mentioned earlier, the second factor is lifestyle. So what are our lifestyle habits that are causing disease and cancer? Well, smoking, that's the number one cause of cancer. Alcohol causes cancer, right? Cigarettes and alcohol. You're not born a smoker, right? Like, these are the things you're putting in your mouth, right? Food, cigarettes, alcohol, lack of exercise. So we know that exercise turns on genes that inhibit cancer growth. It turns on genes that block cancer, and it turns off genes that promote cancer. Exercise, jazzercise, Zumba, yoga, rock climbing, Pilates, CrossFit, doesn't matter. Running, cycling, like, exercise is awesome. It's so good for you. It's so underrated. And people just think they need to do it to lose weight, right? Or they need to do it to look good on the beach or look good naked. But the benefits to exercise are much deeper than the superficial thing you see when someone is fit, right? You actually are fit on the inside, not just the outside. It's not just about having muscles or abs. So I started exercising every day. That's easy. Even just 30 minutes of walking a day. There's a fantastic study they did on breast cancer patients where they found that women who, breast cancer patients who exercised an average of 30 minutes a day, of brisk walking, and ate an average of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, had a 50% decreased risk of recurrence after 9 years. That's wild, right? It's like, here's something that will cut your risk of recurrence in half. Would you like to know what it is? 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day and walking 30 minutes a day. Do you think you can do that? Right? So now I went way beyond that, because I went from eating 1 to 2 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, an average American guy eating tons of fast food and junk food, right? Like, do fries count? Is that a vegetable? The tomato and lettuce on my burger, is that a vegetable? You know what I mean? Like, tomatoes are a fruit. I know, before anybody comments. Tomatoes aren't a vegetable. Yeah, I mean, I just wasn't eating vegetables, and I was barely eating fruit. Like, okay, I have a banana every once in a while, or an apple or something. I went from 1 to 2 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, which is the average for an American, to eating between 15 and 20 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day, every day, over and over and over. Like, so when you do that, when you take a radical, massive diet change, right, incorporate that into your life, you're going to experience some pretty big benefits and big changes in your energy, in your gut, in inflammation, in your immune function, in your brain function, all of it. It improves. So obviously inflammation is related to pain. So pain improves. So anyway, I started feeling really good when I started eating that way. Like, that was exciting, feeling like I had more energy. And so the first few days of a radical diet change, you usually feel like crap, because you're suffering from withdrawal from all the toxic food you've been eating, right? And caffeine and sugar and, excess protein and fat and stuff like that. So anyway, it didn't take long for me to start feeling good. So again, that's the diet part. The lifestyle part, smoking is the number 1 cause of cancer. Lack of exercise and alcohol contribute to cancer, but the number 2 cause of cancer, the second leading cause, clinically, the second leading cause is obesity. Nobody knows this. No one knows this, even though this is not something I made up. There are the National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, all the major bodies of cancer research know this, right? They all talk about it, but the media doesn't talk about it. And so, because obesity is such a sensitive topic, because 70% of Americans are overweight and over 40% are obese, they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and tell them that, hey, obesity is the second leading cause of cancer. Now, here's why.
It's even a sensitive topic in professional circles to even have a conversation about it, even at times with the patient. So I appreciate you making that point, because it's a significant health problem that relates to many different acute and chronic diseases.
There are healthcare professionals who are overweight and obese.
Yep.
I would say the same percentage, right, as non-healthcare professionals. Yep. And I want to make sure people understand why. Why is the second leading cause of cancer? When you're overweight, that means you have excess body fat. Okay. Body fat is simply stored energy. That's all fat is. It's stored energy. And when you eat a diet that is really high in calories, a processed food diet, and excessive amounts of animal protein and meat and dairy, you're consuming a lot of calories and a lot of energy. And what your body does is, if you consume more energy than it needs to get through the day, it saves that energy for later. It stores those calories, which is a unit of measure of energy in food. It stores calories as fat. So that's a great survival mechanism that we were designed with, right? To store energy if we consume more than we need. But the problem is, we live in a rich nation, right? Many of people, if you're watching this video on the internet, you obviously are not in one of the poorest nations in the world, probably, and you have access to food 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year round. There's never a food shortage. And not only that, you have access to a lot of really unhealthy food. And so it's easy to gain weight. when there's food everywhere, right? All the time. So I'm not fat shaming. I'm just saying, like, this is how it works, right? When you consume too many calories, your body puts on excess body fat, and that's a burden to the system. And those fat cells release molecules that are inflammatory. So they contribute to inflammatory disease. They also release hormones like estrogen, excess estrogen that fuels cancer growth. That's not good. They also suppress your immune function. So what happens, this is really fascinating, and this is actually just discovered within the last few years, is that immune cells become obese in an obese environment. And what happens is they take up those excess free floating fatty acids that are in your bloodstream and your lymphatic system. Your immune cells absorb them and become bloated. And when an immune cell is bloated, it's slow and sluggish and it doesn't work well. And so this is the sort of double-edged sword of obesity, is that it's promoting chronic inflammation, excess hormones that fuel cancer, and suppressing your immune system at the same time. Good news is that every overweight and obese person can lose weight. Right? We're all capable of weight loss. If you're willing to lose weight, you can do it. You just have to be committed to do it. And so you have to find that motivation. And if you're not serious about cancer prevention, you should be, because 1 out of every 2 men will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, and 1 out of every 3 women. So, hey, which category do you want to be in? And it's not a coin toss. It's not like, oh, half of the men are lucky and half are unlucky, right? Your choices can put you in the lowest possible risk group based on your daily choices, your diet and lifestyle habits. And stress is a huge one, so I can't wait to talk about it. I'm so glad you brought it up. So again, these are very simple things, right? It's not complicated. Your diet and your lifestyle choices can create health or disease. Every day you're sowing seeds of health or seeds of disease. And at some point in the future, you're going to reap a harvest, right? The harvest is coming. Like, what do you want it to be? So, all the things I'm talking about now, I mean, I've lived through this. I've written 3 books. I've talked to thousands of cancer patients. I've interviewed tons of doctors and experts and survivors. All of this knowledge is in there because of the 18 years I've spent, in this world and connecting all these dots. So, okay. So the third contributing factor is environmental factors. So you got diet, lifestyle, and environment. Environment's kind of an obvious one. Like, we know there's toxic cancer causing stuff, right? In the environment, there's air pollution, there's water pollution. If you're working in a workplace with toxic fumes, whether it's a hairdresser or manufacturing or a print shop, right? If you're breathing toxic fumes every day, soot, smoke, whatever, yeah, you're going to have an elevated cancer risk. If you live near factories that are spewing air pollution, right, or that are dumping into your water supply, yeah, that's risky. So you really have to take a hard look at what is around me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, maybe I need to move away out of this neighborhood, right? And if you have multiple neighbors getting cancer, that's a huge red flag. Like, get out of there. Okay. So your environment is something that's in your control, right? Not as easy to change as your diet. You can change your diet overnight. You can start exercising overnight. And the good thing about diet and exercise is they are protective, right? Mm-hmm. So your diet and exercise strengthen your immune system. So that helps protect you against the environmental toxins that you can't see or taste or smell. So, if you're going to give a weight score, like, to what's the most important things, right? Changing your diet and exercising, right? And stopping your bad habits like smoking and excess drinking, for example, are way more important than moving, right? Or changing jobs. But once you've got that other stuff in place, then you can start fine tuning, like, okay, what else do I need to do to reduce my exposure to potential health destroying toxins? So I worked through all of these things in my life, right? One by one, I was changing things as I was learning. I was just changing things as quickly as I could. And the diet and exercise part was easy. And then replacing, all of the body care products in our home, or the cleaning products, right? Just any of the toxic crap that is in our house with clean, non-toxic brands. So we did that, right? I changed my toothpaste. I stopped brushing my teeth with fluoride, right? I stopped drinking fluoridated water, chlorinated and fluoridated water. So it's a process, right? You can change your life. It takes a little time. Some things you can do quickly, and then other things take time. And stress is this crazy element. And you can really put stress in the lifestyle category, right? I think stress is probably easily, I can make the argument, and I will here, that it is the root cause of most chronic disease, mental and physical. That stress is really this insidious underlying causative factor. And the problem is stress is such a nebulous concept. Doctors are not trained in stress, right? They're not trained in the physiology of stress, like what it is doing to your physical body and the disease that manifests as a result. So they don't even acknowledge, they're just like, oh, you're stressed, whatever. You know what I mean? You got a lot going on, or, you're anxious, or, you got money problems or relationship problems or problems at work. Like, okay, everybody's stressed. That's kind of the way doctors dismiss stress. But there are amazing doctors and scientists that have devoted their lives to studying stress and the impact it has on human health and longevity. And so these are people that I've learned from, right? And my job as a patient advocate and a survivor is to take, like, I read scientific literature and then I just dumb it down, right? I just simplify it and explain it. I'm a good explainer. If I'm good at anything, I feel like I'm a good explainer. So the way that stress is hurting people is that when you are stressed, and let's just define stress as a negative emotion, right? When you are feeling negative emotions, and those emotions would be anger, bitterness, resentment, unforgiveness, guilt, and shame. These are all emotions that are rooted in your past. When you are feeling jealous or envious or insecure or judgmental or critical, right? These are emotions and thoughts and emotions that are rooted in the present, right? As you observe people in life on Facebook or wherever, right? Or if you're feeling fear and anxiety and worry, these are emotions and thoughts that are rooted in the future. They're all negative. So, and they all produce stress. So whether you're, ruminating on some person that hurt you in your past, or you're really worried about what's going to happen in the future for some virus or something, you're in the same state, which is stress. And when you're in stress, your body goes into fight or flight. And when it's in fight or flight, it starts pumping adrenaline and cortisol. And those two hormones suppress your immune system. They also promote inflammation. So it's the same mechanism of action as being obese, right? Inflammation and immunosuppression. Stress hormones also interfere with your brain function. You can't think clearly or rationally, logically, right? Everything becomes impulsive and rash, right? And you just look at what's happened to the world in the last 18 months, how people behave in a state of fear, right? They don't think rationally. And so you don't digest food well when you're stressed, when you're in fight or flight. And so your body is not in an optimal state at all. Fight or flight's good to escape a tiger or fight off a bad guy, right? Or escape a burning building. But it is not the way you're intended to go through your day-to-day life. So when you're in fight or flight, your nervous system is basically sympathetic dominant, not to get too technical. And there's another state which is called parasympathetic dominant, and that is rest and digest. That's being at a state of ease, being at peace, right? Being relaxed, being calm. The state where you are free from worry and anxiety and anger and frustration and bitterness, right? You're free from those thoughts and emotions. And that is a state of healing. That's the state you got to get your body in to heal. So, number one, it's important that you understand, and hopefully your people listening are starting to, is that negative thoughts and emotions produce stress. Okay, that's number one. Got to understand that. Number two is you have to catch yourself, right? You've got to catch yourself in those negative states, right? If you get on social media and you see some person who's got a nice car and you start resenting them, right? You have to catch yourself in that moment and be like, okay, I'm being jealous, I'm being envious, I'm resenting this person, right? I'm just going to choose not to, right? This is called mindfulness, being aware of your thoughts and choosing to think differently, right? Because we're under the impression, I think, that we are our thoughts, right? That whatever we think is who we are, right? But it's not. You can choose how to think. So I had to do that because I had a lot of negativity. I was, like I said earlier, only child. So I was very competitive, type A, very driven, jealous and envious of other people. I was never happy for anyone else's success, right? It just made me jealous or envious. I was critical and judgmental because I was insecure. I was prideful, which is, again, tied into insecurity. I had resentments toward people in my past that had, hurt me in big ways or small ways. I didn't really have I was never a worried person or an anxious person until I got cancer. And now I've got the fear of cancer and the anxiety and worries of cancer. So I got to deal with too. When you're stressed, you've got inflammation and immunosuppression. This is the environment in which cancer cells thrive, right? And so in order to heal or prevent cancer, you have to get your body out of this state that allows cancer cells to thrive and get into a state where your immune system is strong and where inflammation is low. And so it took me time, right? A long time to learn these things. And then right away, I realized that I had to start thinking positively instead of negatively. Right away, I realized I could feel sorry for myself and be angry and resentful of everyone else in the world who didn't have cancer, or I could count my blessings, right? I could stop in those moments of feeling frustrated and angry and sorry for myself and say, you know what? I've got so much to be thankful for. Let me just take a second and take some inventory of what's good in my life. I've got a wife who loves me. I have a roof over my head. I have food in the refrigerator. I have enough money to pay the next set of bills. I have a car. I can see, I can hear, I can get out of bed. I can go for a run today, and on and on. Like, I can do that all day, right? All day. And it just takes a moment's reflection on the good things in your life, the blessings, the privileges that you have, to realize and to sort of extinguish the negative, jealousy, insecurity, envy, those kind of thoughts and feelings. And so I would practice that every single day. I would just catch myself and just start counting my blessings. And in the most difficult season of my life is when I learned how to really practice gratitude. And I have a gratitude hack. I talk about this in my second book, which is Beat Cancer Daily. It's like a daily reader, daily encouragement and action steps and inspiration. It's like you read one page per day for a year. And my gratitude hack is like this. Anytime I start to feel frustrated or, whatever, or jealous or envious, discontent, I just stop and say, you know what? Right now, there's someone dying in the hospital who would give anything to trade places with you. That's all I have to do, is remind myself of that truth, right? That's true. And then I'm like, oh yeah, life is great. It's great. Like, I'm not going to let this little stupid annoyance or frustration steal my joy. And there are people who would love your problems. They'd love to have your problems. And, when we compare ourselves to people that we perceive have more than us, right? People that we perceive have a better life than us, that just fosters resentment and unhappiness, right? But when you compare yourself to people who have less than you, that fosters gratitude and thankfulness and joy and contentment, right? That's the state you want to be in, right? Is like, look around. People are struggling and suffering and poor and have all kinds of problems that are way worse than you. So this was a habit I had to cultivate, but it's a very powerful one. And then, the stress umbrella is a big one, right? Because earlier, I talked about, you got stressful thoughts and emotions that are rooted in your past, ones that are rooted in the present, and ones that are rooted in the future. And so, like, I talked about the present. That's how I deal with the present, is gratitude. And then the future-based negative emotions like fear and anxiety and worry, I just had to give those to God, right? Because when the fear of cancer would creep in, because it's always creeping in, there are these sort of blissful moments in your day when you have cancer where you forget you have cancer, right? You're just busy, like you're working or playing or whatever, right? And you just forget you have cancer, and it's great. And then something reminds you, like somebody, you turn on the TV and somebody says cancer, and or whatever. It's like, this is like so perfect. The very first movie that I went to see after my diagnosis, this was like the day after my diagnosis or a couple days after. My wife and I go see a movie called The Butterfly Effect. And, I don't even know if I like the movie. It's not really the point. But one of the characters gets cancer and dies in the movie. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, really? So anytime the fear would creep in, I would just say, okay, God, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm giving you my fear, right? I'm just giving you my fear. And I trust you. Show me what I need to do. Show me what I need to change, right? That was constantly my prayer, right? Show me what I need to do and show me what I need to change in my life. And so I got pretty good at surrendering my fear, right? Addressing it right away when it would creep in and dealing with it head on, facing it head on. And I think we get in this habit of life where we hide from our problems, right? We hide from our pain. We hide from our fear. We try to medicate it, right? And I'm talking about emotional pain. I'm not talking about physical pain. Right? We try to medicate emotional pain or painful thoughts or anxiety producing thoughts. We medicate those things, or I don't want people to assume medicate means drugs. We self-medicate in lots of ways. And the way we deal with stress. So here's the full connection to cancer right here. So I already talked about when you're stressed, your body's inflamed and it's immunosuppressed. But then what are you doing to self-medicate your stress? Well, alcohol, tobacco, overeating, gambling, shopaholic, workaholic, pornography. There's a lot of ways that people are self-medicating their stress that are compounding their health problems down the road. Okay. So that's again, you end up in this vicious cycle, right? Where you're in a state of stress and you're doing things to self-medicate that are compounding the stress, and your health is spiraling downward. But you can break that cycle and you can start doing different things that put you in a virtuous cycle. So when you're in a vicious cycle, your health spirals downward, but in a virtuous cycle, your health spirals up. And that's what I was doing. I didn't realize it at the time. What I wanted to do is I wanted to do everything in my power to help my body heal, right? And anything that could possibly, I had it sort of like the litmus test for me, is like anything that could possibly help me heal and had no risk of harm, I would do it. And if I could afford it, right? If I could get access to it and afford it. So I did like IV vitamin C therapy, for example, but I did acupuncture, Reiki, chiropractic, right? Lots and lots, copious amounts of supplements and herbal therapies, not like therapies, but just like herbal tinctures and herbal formulas, in addition to the hardcore diet change and juicing. And so all of that compounded, right? All of those things helped in some in big ways, some in small ways. It's impossible to quantify, but it's kind of like the everything but the kitchen sink approach, right? That was my approach. Like, I'm just going to do everything that's possibly good, right? And let my body use what it needs to survive and thrive, to heal. And so I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I got to close the loop on the stress part. And I want to talk about the new book, Beat Cancer Kitchen. Here it is. And talk about food because it's such a fun topic. But the stress part is such a big aspect, because if you don't address the stress in your life, don't change your diet, don't exercise, don't quit smoking. There's no point, right? Because the stress can outweigh everything else you do to help yourself, right? You'll still get benefits, but the benefits can be outweighed by the stress. So it's the mental, emotional, and spiritual issues that take time to work through, but it's worth it. And so The last aspect of stress that I talked about is from your, dealing with pain from your past. And pain from your past causes you pain in the present if you don't deal with it. And not just emotional pain, but physical pain. And so I made a decision that I was going to forgive every person who had ever hurt me by name. And this is a process that takes a little time because you have to sit down and think through your life. And you're not going to do it all in one sitting. But, every day, if you just make a few minutes to sit down and just think, okay, it's forgiveness time. Let's do this. And you start thinking, okay, second grade, third grade, first grade, I can start back as early as you can remember, right? If you remember kids picking on you on the playground, forgive them, right? Right. And as you work through your life, friends, family members, teachers, coworkers, strangers, right? You have a filing cabinet in your memory where all the painful memories are kept. And you got to open it up and pull out the memories and deal with them. You can't just move on. That doesn't work because your subconscious mind knows if there's unresolved conflict in your life. And so, one by one, as a person, as I would remember something that someone said one time or did or whatever, I would just say, okay, this is the forgiveness prayer. I would just say, God, okay, you know what they did. You know how I feel about it. I'm still angry. I'm still upset. It still hurts, right? But I'm choosing to forgive them and I'm letting it go and I'm giving it to you. They're all yours. You can deal with them. I'm letting it go. That's what forgiveness is. It's a choice not to hold it against them anymore. Doesn't mean you have to be friends. Doesn't mean you have to talk. None of that, right? This is a personal, internal decision between you and God, and that's it. And so that's what I did. And I just started working through that one by one, forgiving people. And the weight is lifted off of you, right? Because we don't realize, this term is used so much, we don't even think about what it means. Baggage, right? When someone says, oh, they got a lot of baggage. What is that? That's emotional pain, right? And when you're carrying all the anger and resentments and bitterness toward all the people that have ever done you wrong in big ways and small ways in life, you're carrying a huge bunch of baggage. And it's like a giant backpack full of bricks, right? And you can slip yourself out of that backpack and let it drop to the ground through forgiveness, right? That's how you get it off of your back and you free yourself. And so it is so powerful and so freeing and incredible. It's like one of the most healing things you can do is to forgive the people who've hurt you. And the beautiful thing is most of us don't want to forgive, right? You don't want to, right? I didn't want to, okay? I kind of wanted to because I had a sense that it would help me, right? But I didn't want to because I was holding on to that need for justice, right? Because we're wired for justice. And we recoil at injustice. And just as humans, we can't stand to see injustice, right? Or to experience it. But I let that go. And I just said, God, you're the God of perfect justice. You can deal with them and forgive me for holding on to this anger for so long, right? Forgive me for my mistakes. I don't deserve it either. And so as I worked through that, I just found so much freedom and I became quick to forgive. And so now it's just part of my daily life. Look, you've been on the internet a long time as a public figure. I've been on the internet since 2010 as a public figure. People have said every mean thing possible to me, right? At this point. And, I could say, yeah, I've developed really thick skin, but I also am really quick to forgive. And so people can say anything they want about me. And if I read it, it may be ouch, right? That hurts. Man, God bless them. I forgive them. I'm not going to carry it. I'm not going to let it steal my joy or ruin my day. And Jesus said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So it's like when you actually pray and ask God to bless the people who've hurt you, you're doing something miraculous. Really. I mean, you want to talk about accelerating the healing, the emotional healing, ask God to bless your enemies. And he knows you don't want him to. That's the best part, right? He knows you don't want him to, but you're asking anyway, right? And that's That's the way I would end every prayer. I would just say, God, I forgive them. I'm giving them to you. I'm letting it go. And I'm asking you to bless them. I'm asking you to bless them. Hope you don't, but, but I'm asking you to, okay? Because this is for me. Forgiveness is for you, right? It's the old adage, bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping it hurts someone else. Mm-hmm. It only hurts you. And you look at people who are elderly, and there's two types. There's the really angry, old, sour, bitter ones, and there's the happy ones, And which one do you want to be? Because none of those people were born bitter. They weren't born sour and angry. They cultivated that over time. So, again, forgiving people who've hurt you, forgiving yourself, asking for forgiveness, right? Practicing gratitude when you're feeling insecure or jealous, giving your worries and fears to God. Like, all those things are so powerful. And so those are the things that I did to get myself out of a state of constant stress. So I was bouncing back and forth between all those emotions, right? Stress from the past, stress about the future, stress in the present. And stress is huge. And my second book is really mostly about getting out of stress. Beat Cancer Daily is secretly about helping a person get themselves out of a state of stress and into a state of encouragement and hope and positivity, and taking the action that helps them survive and thrive. And this is really crazy. Like, I learned recently from, do you know Dr. David Hanscom?
Sure do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I interviewed him recently, and he said two things that I'd never heard before that was so amazing, which was that this is study-based information, is that when you have a feeling, when you have hope puts your body into a state of rest and digest. Mm-hmm. Hope alleviates stress. And when you have a sense of control over your life, it does the same thing. So hope and a sense of control brings you out of that state of fight or flight and into a rest and digest state. And so I had those things. And that's what I'm trying to do now for other cancer patients, is give them hope and give them control back over their life and their health. So it was cool to know that there's actually a physiological benefit to those things. I'd always just thought it was more psychological, right? And so anyway, so I've got this new book called Beat Cancer Kitchen that my audience has been asking for years and years. What did you eat? What do you do? Like, what do you eat today? How do you eat now? And so my wife and I wrote this together, and it's plant-based anti-cancer recipes. The beautiful thing is that fruits and vegetables have all these wonderful nutrients, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, antioxidants, and thousands of what are called phytonutrients or phytochemicals. Phyto means plant. And these are nutrients that are only found in plants. And a number of these phytonutrients are directly anti-cancer nutrients. Like, some of them improve detoxification. Some of them strengthen your immune function and help your immune cells work better. Some of them directly cause cancer cell death. Some of them prevent cancer tumors from growing or spreading. So there's all these incredible anti-cancer nutrients in fruits and vegetables. I talk about them in Beat Cancer, Chris Beat Cancer, my first book. But then Beat Cancer Kitchen is a full color recipe book with anti-cancer recipes. And they're just loaded with veggies, and especially herbs and spices, because herbs and spices are notoriously incredible anti-cancer foods. Garlic, onions, and leeks are at the top of the heap. And then right under them, in terms of anti-cancer potency, are going to be the cruciferous vegetables: broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, bok choy. A lot of the vegetables that maybe some people listening are like, I hate broccoli, I hate cauliflower, right? The vegetables that Americans don't eat, right? But I figured out a way, and I wasn't a big fan of these vegetables either, at all, right? When I got cancer, but I learned quickly that this is what I should be eating. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to overdose on nutrition. I'm going to eat the most potent anti-cancer foods every single day at every meal. This is my strategy. And then I kind of developed a very simple daily routine, and it was just rinse and repeat every day. Overdose on nutrition every single day. I'm not, beating myself up about the past. I'm not worrying about the future. I'm just focused on today, right? Today is anti-cancer day. How am I going to take care of myself in the best way possible today, without being a perfectionist, right? But just creating a really simple and realistic, doable daily routine. And so that's what I've been helping people do for years as a coach and author and speaker and all the stuff I do. And now we have this beautiful full color cookbook called Beat Cancer Kitchen, which comes out this week. Amazon, every place that sells bookstores is published by Hay House. So it's easy to find. And again, I figured out, and we created some new recipes too, through just fun experimentation of how to make the healthiest anti-cancer foods just delicious, right? Where almost anybody could eat them and be like, this is good. Like, I would eat this. I like this.
It's a great book. I flipped through it last night. There's a couple of things in there. I really appreciate that you're talking about herbs and spices, which so many people just leave out of their diet completely. And when they hear the word spice, some people say, I don't like spicy. And I'm like, well, oregano is considered a spice. It's not spicy, and it should be in your diet for, as you mentioned, anti-cancer properties, anti-pain, anti-inflammation, all those things. Because I have to say, I really appreciate, I've known you for a while now, but I really appreciate, and I picked this up through you before, but on the interview, how you really have managed to go through the science and make it easy for people. Because ultimately, that's what every single person on the internet is trying to do, is exactly that. Because when you go, even if you go see a cancer doctor who knows everything you know, the delivery sometimes that you get from them isn't quite as simple and digestible and actionable as what you're saying. If it's not actionable, then it's not worth it almost. So I think, that's why I appreciate your platform, your products, your new book, because it makes things simple for people.
It has to be simple, right? I realized for me, I was like, if I can't create a simple daily routine to follow, diet, exercise, managing my stress, it's not going to be sustainable, right? I'm not going to be able to stick with it. So it was selfishly, right? I had to reduce it down to something that was ultra simple that I could follow every single day. And then I realized, this is good for everybody, right? Like, everybody needs simple, because life is complicated, enough as it is. And it's hard to change your life, right? I had that motivation, like cancer, but a lot of cancer patients, they just don't want to change, right? And let me just say, not just cancer patients, a lot of people with chronic disease do not want to change. They just don't. They don't want to, and they won't. And look, everybody's got their own life and got their own choices. No judgment. Like, if you don't change your life, it doesn't affect me. Like, I'm fine. But if I'm doing anything, I'm trying to instill that spark, that belief that healing is possible. Because it all starts from there, right? Healing is possible. If I can just get a person to believe that healing is possible, then they will start thinking, okay, if healing's possible, what can I do to help myself heal? And then we're off to the races, right? Then it's like, okay, cool. Now it's time to learn some things, right? And time to make some changes, right? So A, you got to believe that healing's possible. B, you got to learn how to heal. And C, you've got to be willing to change your life and, let go and break your bad habits and replace them with good habits. Mm-hmm. So, this is holistic health, right? That's what we're talking about. It's a holistic approach. It's not a quick fix. It's not a magic bullet, lotion or potion. Like, that's not what I'm interested in. That stuff, sometimes it works. Hey, that's great. Maybe it's the placebo effect, right? Or maybe it really did cure somebody, one herb or something. But what I know for sure is that massive action produces massive results. And if you take massive action to transform your life and your health, you will get massive results. You will. You're just going to get them. And we see it every day in our community. Cancer patients getting more energy, their blood work coming back clear, their scans coming back better or clear, right? And some of them do all the conventional therapies and some of them don't. And we see great results in both because, again, everything that I talk about and encourage people to do are things that only, they're do no harm therapies, right? They only produce benefit, right? There's only benefit. There's no detriment to the things we've talked about, right? So that's exciting. Better quality of life, longer life, complete disease remission, right? Health and healing. Like, all those things are wonderful and good. And that's what we do. So, this is a part of my story I didn't get to, and I know we're pretty close on our time limit here, maybe over time a little bit. I did not do chemotherapy. I chose not to do it, and I chose to change my life. But I did find a naturopathic doctor and an integrative oncologist, and I put together just a very small little support system of professionals to help me navigate the journey. And I had blood work done every month and CT scans every 6 months. And again, I just created this simple healing routine, and just every single day was just taking care of myself like I never had before. And, there's a momentum that happens in healing, or really in anything, in any part of your life, when you're consistent.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to the gym 2 times, you get no benefit, right? But if you've never been to the gym and you go to the gym and you go 3 days a week, in 3 months, you're stronger, right? You are stronger, right? It's the consistency. If you stop going, right, you will lose that strength. So, knew just from a background in working out in college, I knew at least that much, right? Consistency matters, and getting that momentum going matters. So there's healing momentum that happens when you're overdosing on fruits and vegetables, when you're forgiving like crazy, when you're, removing toxins from your life, when you're exercising. You just get this momentum going. And once you get over that little bit of a hump in the beginning, get over the learning curve, reorganize your life. It's not that hard. Anybody can do it. Once you get over that, then it's like riding a bike. Once you get the pedals going, it's pretty easy to keep the wheels turning, right? You just get into the groove, and that's what I did. I just created a new life, a new way of living, and I stuck with it. And here we are. Yeah.
I've been speaking with Chris Wark. You can find more information about him on his platform at crispycancer.com. Of course, his third book is out. You can find it everywhere. It's called Beat Cancer Kitchen. Those are these simple plant-based anti-cancer recipes out today in stores. I want to thank Chris for joining me this week and for sharing information about how to beat cancer. Of course, if you have friends, families, colleagues, coworkers interested in learning more about natural cancer care, please make sure to share this with them on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, social media, everywhere people hang out talking about cancer. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Healing Pain Podcast with Dr. Joe Tatta. To subscribe to the podcast and learn more, visit Integrative Pain Science Institute.com. That's Integrative Pain Science Institute.com. Sign up to receive weekly updates, leave a review on iTunes, and share this episode with your friends.